And welcome back. Here we are in session 3, and we're going to look again at follow-up 1 so that I can clarify some of the key points in this first follow-up that you'll be working on. So as stated before, if you think of the directions, you need to focus on the key pieces. You'll be interviewing various people. So in part 1, you'll see that you need to prepare a personal statement of your philosophies and beliefs about supervision. There'll be some other resources that will be available that you may look at, and they can be found in Chapter 5 in the Glickman text. In this part, I also want to draw your attention to the fact that you do need to make specific references to course content and the Fair and Ethical Practices, which is another handout posted on Canvas, sponsored by AASA, the American Association of School Administrators. And if you're in athletics, you can go ahead and use the Athletic Code of Ethics, but you definitely need to reference these in part 1. When you get to part 2, you have some questions that you're going to ask. I would like you to ask the same question of each of the people that you choose to interview. I think I stated earlier that it's nice if you can interview people from the same building so you can look for similarities, but that is certainly not a requirement. When you look at the directions at the end, you're writing separate brief summaries of the interviews. Brief means exactly that. Please do not go on and on and on. Then again, you see references to specific course content. So as you're summarizing and talking about the interviews, you need to make connections to any of the readings that I've asked you to read for this first follow-up, or the text, or both. You also need a significant quote, so please make sure that I see that quotation somewhere in the paper in that section for each of the 4 people that you interview. When you move on to part 3, you're going to then compare and contrast the interviewees and their information that you gleaned from their interview, and then your philosophy and beliefs. So you're going to be thinking about what you established earlier in the paper, and then you're going to compare and contrast. Please also use part 1, part 2, part 3, or use subheadings according to APA format. It just makes it easier to read. Use specific references to course content, again, is a theme that you see. And then the last section is your philosophy of education. Now, it's bolded because the philosophy of education is not the same as your beliefs about supervision up in part 1. One is how you believe teaching should be, the other is how you believe supervising should be. But now you're going to make connections to how you think you should teach versus how you think you should lead. There may be some similarities. Again, you need to reference specific course content, which is our recurring theme. Then, as I stated before, in order to do well on this follow-up, you also need to look at the scoring rubric. So I generally just look at the highest score point in each section so that you know what you need to do to get the top score. So in this one, again, it talks about reference to educational writer that influenced you is something that you might want to think about. Also, fair and ethical practices, you see, which is the handout that I just mentioned from AASA, and then specific course content is the last piece in the first section. So if you don't do some of these things that I'm highlighting, then you can't get the 4. If you got knocked down a point or 2, you'll already be down to less than an A. In the summaries, same connection here. References to fair and ethical is a theme, and also course content is another theme. So think about that as you're writing, and that's how I'll know that you've done the readings that were required. When we get to part C, again, compare and contrast, references to course content, and then also fair and ethical. So we use fair and ethical quite a bit. Again, if you're in the athletic administration and you want to use ethics from NCAA or one of the other sources that I've posted, that is certainly fine and completely acceptable. And then the last part would be Part D. Again, I'm sure you're thinking this is the recurring theme. You want to do references to course content and fair and ethical. And then Part E is technical writing and APA format. Please make sure you're following APA format and conventions, that you proofread your paper. I suggest you go on Purdue OWL, which is a link on Canvas, to review the pieces of APA format, because you don't want to lose points here because they go quickly. So again, this is for your follow-up, which will be due in week 4. And you do not need to put this rubric in the paper. Everything is electronic. I can just copy it in and talk about the comments when I grade it. You will upload it on Canvas, which I believe I can show you right here. If we look at Canvas in the week that it is due, you will see there is a place right here, follow-up 1, February 14th. That'll be Wednesday at 11:59. You will click on this and you will upload your paper, and it is worth 20 points. I certainly encourage you to email me, call, or text if you have questions, and I encourage you to look this over sooner rather than later so that you can give your best effort for this follow-up. Good luck. Please keep in touch, and I will talk to you soon.